Here we are at the Jaguar TCS Racing Garage, excited to be back here in London at the Excel Centre. So at the moment we're getting the cars ready for FP1, Free Practice 1, which is going to take place a little bit later this afternoon. So everything you can see here gets transported all around the world by Formula E. So when we arrive, empty structure. Teams have been busy all this morning and yesterday getting the garages set up and built, and now the focus is on getting the cars ready for that first session. So the opportunity for us to get out on track with the cars is really important. Huge amount of preparation goes into getting the cars and the teams ready for a race weekend, but all of that is just preparation until we get here at the track, get out on the track walk, so we can check any changes that have been made before the last time we were here back in season 7. Some of the corners have been changed, so it's important to go out on that track walk, but then also get out on that Free Practice 1 session as well. So things that the guys are doing at the moment, so when the cars leave from the previous race, they'll do a lot of repair of any damage and get the cars prepared for transport. But when they then come and arrive here at the next race, there's opportunities to adjust the setup of the car. So all the circuits have a slightly different approach, so opportunity to change those setups, get the car fully adapted for that different circuit. Things that we're looking at, then also over on the left-hand side here, we have Mitch's car. So a bit of information on the car itself then. So all of the cars themselves, the chassis, the bodywork, the wheels and the tyres, that is the same for all of the teams. What we get to develop ourselves as teams is the powertrain and the rear suspension. So that's the teams get to develop the hardware, the software for that. Obviously within the rules that the FI have given us, but that does mean that we're looking for the most efficient way to transfer the energy from the battery to the rear wheels, and that's what's really pushing this technology on, by developing the most efficient way to transfer that energy. So that's really important for the industry. You can see the tyres that we've got on the front. So in Formula E we have Michelin provide our tyres, and we have the same spec tyre for the entire race weekend. So we don't have a soft compound or a hard compound or wet tyre, we just have the one spec of tyre. Great thing about that is it does then mean we don't have to have a huge number of tyres being transported to all of the different races. So it again reduces that carbon footprint. Creates a bit of a challenge for the team, so we have to make sure we're adapting our approach for this tyre that does have this unique this one tyre fits all, one shoe fits all approach. But that's something that all of the teams have that same challenge, so we're able to adapt and overcome that. We have for a race weekend, a traditional race weekend, we would have 2 sets of tyres, but for a double header we get access to 3 sets of tyres. The tyres are an incredibly important factor for a race weekend in terms of the preparation of those tyres and how you use them during the sessions. So you'll be seeing during the Free Practice 1, Free Practice 2 and qualifying, the cars will be pulling into the pit lane and changing those tyres over quite regularly, and that's all to do with getting those tyres into the perfect temperature window in order to get the fastest lap out of the car. So as we're looking across the car here, so we're just inserting the seats. So these are specifically molded to each of our drivers. So this is Mitch's seat here, and yeah, as I say, that's specifically molded for Mitch himself. Sam has his own on the other side. A bit further down across the car, so behind the driver sits the battery. It's a 52 kilowatt hour battery provided by McLaren Technologies. Again, that is common across all of the garages, so something that we have no development over, but McLaren are responsible for that. And the intention is for that battery to last the entire season. So for all of the sessions, that battery will be being used, the energy out of that. So the idea of that battery lasting the entire season means McLaren have a job to make sure that battery is really up to the task. So again, they're getting the opportunity to really push the technology and development of that battery technology. Behind, underneath the cover here, is our rear powertrain and rear suspension. So this is what we as a team develop ourselves. Hence, we've got to be careful about sharing any view or images of that underneath there. And of course, as I say, that's where it's important, that development of that technology, ensuring the ability for us to get the energy from that 52 kilowatt hour battery to the rear wheels. And that's where it's fantastic working with all of our partners such as Dow, Castrol, GKN, TCS of course, to ensure whether it's a hardware, software, a bit of a material in that rear powertrain, for us to find those efficiencies and opportunities to improve that technology or efficiency of energy from that battery to the rear powertrain. Something that's also really important is we are getting huge amounts of data from the car, either when we're going out on this session and we come back and we're able to download the data from this black umbilical cord that's coming down from the gantry here into the car. So we've got huge amounts of data that are coming from the car that we then need to review and assess to help develop our strategy for the race weekend. And that's again where our partners are really fantastic at finding the most efficient ways for us to handle that data. So it's not only just about the car and the hardware itself, it's also how we can most efficiently use the data that we get from the times we're out on the track. So as I say, this umbilical cord is the one that comes down here and plugs into the car. Something that Formulary has, and a challenge that our engineers have to overcome, is that when the car is out on track, we're not getting any data sent back to us. Only when the car is parked in the paddock here and that umbilical is plugged in are we then receiving that data from the car. So the communication between the driver and the engineer is really key. Our number one engineer for Mitch is Joseph, so he stands on the centre island just over there, and he'll be in comms with Mitch as he's out on the circuit. And as I say, that communication between him and Mitch is incredibly important. So they need to be talking about how the car is handling, talking about the opportunity for any setup changes when they come back, the energy, the temperatures, all of that information. And that's something that we need to be able to send over the radio. Challenge that we have though is everyone else can hear our radio. So how can we broadcast that information back to the engineers where everyone will be able to hear it and be able to then take advantage of it? And we have a series of codes that we're able to use, which the driver is able to send over the radio, and the engineers are then able to decipher back here at the garage so they can then understand how the car is performing. We also have the ability with the battery, as I say, it sits behind the driver, to adjust the temperature of that. So a bit like with your phone, if you're charging your phone, you can notice sometimes the phone gets a bit warm. So that's to do with the temperature of the battery as it's charging and going through that process. So that's the same situation we can have here, either when we're charging or when we're using the battery, moving that energy from there into the powertrain. It can adjust that temperature and it will increase that temperature. So we have a chiller that sits just behind this boarding here, and comes off these 2 points here and goes into the rear battery, and we can adjust that temperature of the battery using the coolant from that chiller and keep it at the temperature that we want, the optimum temperature. And something that we have to then bear into mind, not as much of a factor here in London, but a situation might be that we'll take the car from here, we'll get the temperature of that battery down, the car will then leave the garage, head out towards the grid, and it has to go and do a formation lap. It will then pull up on the grid. And if we're in somewhere like New York or Jakarta where it's incredibly hot, the sun is beating down, while the car is sat there, the battery temperature could then start creeping up, and we could end up starting the race with a bit of a disadvantage because the battery is not in the optimum starting temperature, it's creeped up slightly. So that chiller gives us the opportunity to cool it down below the optimum temperature. So we've accounted for the car going out, lining up on the grid, and that temperature increasing. So we can have a look then over in the engineer station that's in the centre that I mentioned, where Joseph stands. Talk you through who we've got stood on here. So during the race, we'll have 3 engineers per side. So Joseph and then Christina and Jules will also be on here as well. And they're the ones who are monitoring the performance of the drivers out on the circuit and ensuring that strategy is evolving as we're going along and things change out on the track. So Joseph is the one in contact, and he's then supported by Christina, Jules. Rico is Sam's number 1 engineer who stands on the opposite side, so it's mirrored on both sides. As I say, that communication and the work between the 3 of them is incredibly important to make sure that opportunities are spotted and identified and capitalised on as quickly as possible. And then coming around the back here, this is where Phil Charles, our technical manager, he would stand, and he has oversight over both of the drivers, over both of the engineer teams. So that is the Jaguar TCS Racing Garage here at the London XL. We're incredibly excited to get racing. We've got free practice 1 this afternoon, and then we're into race 1 tomorrow, race 2 on Sunday. We can't wait to go out there and see what we can do.